Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for the series premiere of the latest new show, not from FX, but FX on Hulu, known as Devs. So what Devs is essentially about is we center on this character of Lily. She is this encryptor, and she's in this really good relationship with her boyfriend who actually starts to work at Devs. However, one night she realizes that he hasn't come home in a while, and she really starts to get worried and basically starts to believe that this company is solely responsible for his disappearance and basically now is working with an ex of hers to try to track down what could have happened and try to gain answers, and that's really all I'm going to say. So, Devs, overall, I was very, very excited for this show. Not just because of the fact that it's FX, and I've said every single time, like I do with HBO, that anytime that FX has a show coming out, that is automatically on my radar. It's automatically something I'm interested in because they've just always been on a consistent high for me. They rarely don't deliver, and especially knowing though that Alex Garland was behind this, who gave us two of, I think, the most thought-provoking sci-fi thrillers of the last decade in Ex Machina and Annihilation, both of which I absolutely adore. I was really excited to see him make the jump to TV because, to my knowledge, I don't believe he's done a TV show before. But also the fact that he was being so hush-hush about it, and the trailer didn't even reveal what the show was really about. I was very excited to see how this was all going to turn out, and also knowing that this is really the first show for FX on Hulu, and this is really their flagship show in that way. So overall, did it deliver? Yes, I will say that Devs definitely did deliver for me. It's definitely different from what I was expecting, but overall, I am really liking what we're getting out of this show, and there's definitely enough in there for me to say I'm intrigued to see where the show does end up going, but we're just getting to right now. Now, obviously, because there are 2 episodes here, I'm probably going to spend a considerable amount of time talking about one more than the other. But I think I want to talk about the first episode first, not just because it's the first episode, but I think I want to focus on that one a bit for a while because this was a very interesting premiere for me. When I first watched it, like last night, because I was very excited to watch the show, I literally filmed that Better Call Saul video, and then I immediately went to watch Devs because I was just highly anticipating the premiere of the show, and I gotta say, the first time I watched it, I was kind of let down because it's a very different premiere than what you are really expecting. In fact, I wouldn't even call it a first episode. If anything, it's a prologue. It is an absolute prologue. The first 27 minutes is entirely a prologue as to what this show is going to be about. Lily is not even the main character for the first 27 minutes. It's entirely focused on the character of Sergey, who at first I was just really bored by. I wasn't that interested in who he was, but rewatching it, you realize that's kind of the point. Sergey is someone that, you know, yes, he is a coder and things like that, but he has this innate ability to, you know, basically find a way to predict the life cycle of an entire organism, and you can see how this really impresses the people over at Devs, Forrest, and his assistant Cailee. He's immensely impressed by this, and you know, seeing Sergey get so into Devs, you start to realize Sergey is basically the audience. That's essentially what they're going for here. They're not trying to make him a very compelling character. Sergey is just someone that is pulled into this world that he really doesn't understand all that much. And I gotta say, on that front, I think Karl Gluzman did a really good job, particularly the scene when he's first introduced to all of this tech that he legitimately doesn't understand. And I think what's so unnerving about it is that Forrest isn't telling him a goddamn thing. Like, he asks him right off the bat, like, what do I do here? And Forrest is like, I can't tell you. You're gonna find out for yourself. And I really like the way they get us introduced to this character, the way they really throw us into this environment, tell us very little about what's going on. And again, I was frustrated by this at first, but on a rewatch, I realized that's really what they're trying to do. They're trying to get you to be very confused as to what's going on. They want you to feel just like Sergei, where you feel very uncomfortable, like you don't really want to see much of more of what's going on. And I thought that was something that they did a really good job with. Initially, though, my main complaint with the show was going to be I thought that they were revealing a bit too much, particularly the scene where Sergei is eventually killed when he is asphyxiated. I thought that they were revealing way too much there, but really, upon thinking about it, it makes a lot of sense for them to go in that direction because of the fact that Sergei, they believe, isn't loyal. It shows the idea that they are so protective of devs that even they don't fully understand it. And I do believe Forrest when he says he doesn't really understand a lot of what goes on there, because it seems like a highly advanced sort of system. It seems like a highly advanced organization that they don't really understand either. And I have to say, the one thing that definitely stuck out to me through both viewings is just how fucking good Nick Offerman is in this role. He is absolutely killing it as the character of Forrest. I truly have never seen a performance quite like this from him before, and maybe it's just because he's usually the funny guy, you know, he's usually doing a lot of comedies, and it's not that he hasn't done serious work before, because he has, but nothing really to this level. I've never been this creeped out, this, you know, I've never been this creeped out, this scared, this foreboding presence that he plays it to perfection. He is absolutely the standout right now for me, and I think the show is worth watching alone just for his performance, and I love everything that he's doing as the character of Forrest. And the character himself, I think, is actually very interesting when we get more into, you know, his backstory and things like that, which I'll talk about more in a little bit. I thought they did a really great job of that, but like I said, I thought that at first they were revealing a bit too much there, but really on a rewatch, I started to realize just how important all of this stuff really is, just how much they're revealing. I thought they were doing a really excellent job within that way, and I started to realize that the questions that I was asking are not the questions that the show wants me to ask, and I definitely realized that on a rewatch. The question is not, you know, what is Dev's, like, actual motive, because we already kind of know that right now. The question is more, what's going on with Sergei? Why doesn't he want to tell Lily what's going on? Because Lily's very adamant on, like, we're not talking about this at all, you know, I don't want to be in a situation where I know too much, it's very classified and things like that. But why is he just not telling her anything? You know, why is he okay with that? You know, why is he in such a rush to leave? These were things I wasn't thinking about initially, but the second episode absolutely did that, and for me, the second episode ended up being a lot stronger than the first one. The first episode, I do think, was a good introduction, but I did feel that it felt more like a prologue than a first episode to me, and that's not necessarily a problem, but I'm not gonna lie when I say that I wasn't really that into it on the first watch until we started to focus more on Lily and everything that's going on, and her whole relationship with Jamie and what's going on there. I thought they did a really excellent job with that for sure, and I thought they laid the breadcrumbs quite well. So this first episode, again, the reason I'm talking about it in a very fragmented way is because there's not a lot going on in this first episode. It's a lot of just getting us introduced to the character of Sergei, getting us to understand the environment of what the show's going to be, and then starting to open us more to the central mystery of what could have happened to Sergei, and the fact that it's pretty obvious in that final scene that that is doctored footage. I don't think what we're seeing is actually what's going on. I feel like that's edited. I feel like there's more going on there than we think, and I think that's something that the show did a really good job with laying out, and I was very impressed with the way that was done. And they did a really good job at showing the kind of person that Forrest is in this first episode, like I said, how he comes off very distinguished and very professional, even though there's something still inherently creepy about him eating a salad without a fork. I mean, like, that alone is, like, off-putting. But also that he clearly has Alison Pill's character wrapped around his finger to the point where when Sergei is asking her, like, you know, something about the code, she tells him to basically just kind of go with it, and you can really tell how involved that whole thing is. Now, I'm really interested in getting more into that relationship. I thought they did a really good job with setting that up here overall, and then same goes for the whole thing with Lily and Jamie, and us seeing their whole sort of fractured relationship, how they used to be together, and how he clearly did have a thing for her. He wanted a more serious relationship, but she wasn't really into that, and he's basically kind of resented her ever since, and how he didn't really want to help her initially. I thought they set all that up really well, and that's stuff I thought this first episode did do really well. So again, this first episode, there's stuff it did really well, and then there's stuff that I don't think it did as well. Some of the things I don't think it did as well is that I just think it was a little too weird for its own liking. The first scene with Nick Offerman, I didn't really understand what was really going on there, other than we're looking at like a panel of sorts, and I didn't really understand what that was all about. And I did feel that Lily as a character just wasn't the most interesting in this episode. You know, we get the sense that she's the girlfriend of Sergei, but that's really all she kind of was in this first episode, and I do kind of wish they spent a little bit more time fleshing out this character, fleshing out, you know, what they do with her. But like I said, I felt that the first half, like I said, just dragged a bit, and felt more like a prologue than really anything. And it's one of those episodes where I really felt like I had to watch the second episode to really figure out, how do I feel about this first episode overall? Do I like what they're doing here? You know, are there things that this episode could have done better that the second episode, you know, are there things that are going to make sense in that second episode? And I have to say, that very much was the case. I just needed to watch another episode. I didn't even really, I think, need to watch that episode again. I could have just went right to episode 2, and I probably would have felt the same, because this episode just made me feel a lot more content with where the show is actually headed, especially when it comes to our main character, Lily, who I found way more compelling in this episode. How she's someone that is very much alone. When she's calling her mom and talking to her about how she's with all her friends, and, you know, they're in her room and they're all like bonding and things like that, but in actuality, she's all alone. I thought Sonoya Mizuno just completely nailed that scene, and you can really tell the type of connection that her and Sergei really had, that this was a real relationship in that way. And now that he's gone, you really do feel the void. And I'm really interested in getting more into Lily's character, because we saw her talking to that girl, Jen, I believe her name was, in the first episode, and you thought that those two were friends, but now, knowing that Lily's kind of like all alone, I'm interested in seeing more of what's really going on there. What's her character all about, really? And I thought they did a really good job with setting all of that up for sure. And like I said, I think Sonoya Mizuno carries the show really well, but I also really wasn't expecting the amount of answers we got in the second episode, and the fact that I'm actually okay with it. Like, I'm glad this show is not wasting any time in revealing things, especially when it comes to the really weird imagery of these, like, huge balloons of this little girl. You know, what the hell is up with that? Why are there all these balloons just, like, barricading, like, the devs building? Why is this, why everywhere you look they're here? And also, why is Nick Offerman's organization that he runs called Amaya? Well, it turns out that Forrest as a character actually has this very tragic loss with his daughter, and I really love the way we got into this. And this is something where, while I do feel that there's a lot that Forrest is hiding, I think he's being completely honest with Lily in this scene, where he talks to her about about how, you know, he's lost his daughter, and this has been a real setback for him, and how he really, you know, wishes that he could maybe bring her back again. And I think this is going to be something that's very important. I mean, we look at his house, and he, even though he's like this billionaire, he lives in a typical suburban house, and I think he's there for a reason. Like, he doesn't want to leave behind the life that he once had, and I think that's what makes him such a well-written character in that way, is that we already, the first episode introduced you to the very conniving, very creepy, very foreboding side of Forrest, and how dedicated he is to the integrity of devs and things like that, and making sure that all that stuff is, you know, is kept hidden, and that the truth is never found out. Here, we see the more human side of him, and I feel like it's starting to make a lot more sense of what's really going on there, because the other big thing we find out is really what devs is all about. I mean, we know in this episode, which is not something I was expecting, that they can basically find a way to project, you know, events from long ago, all the way to, like, biblical times. Like, I'm pretty sure that was a crucifixion of Jesus that they were looking at, and I could be wrong here, but I would not be surprised if they are testing out this time travel because Forrest wants to find a way to bring his daughter back. I feel like that might be where the show is headed, and if it is, I actually think that's a really good motivation for the character. They've already set that up really well, I have to say, and it makes sense why he's still living in that home, because he feels that he's going to be able to bring her back. But I do feel there's still a lot more going on with devs than we think, especially because, you know, he goes to the one character that killed Sergei and basically tells him that, like, yeah, Lily knows too much. We got to do something about this. You know, she could become a real problem. So there's still a lot more going on there that we do not know, and that's something I'm very excited to get into for sure. I think that's something that they definitely introduced very well, but also knowing what Sergei was hiding. And now it makes a lot more sense why he was acting the way he was in the first episode. Why was he in such a rush to leave? Well, it's because it turns out he was very much a Russian spy. He was trying to obtain information from devs so he could then send it over to this Russian guy that he was working for, and I like that Lily doesn't really get to find out more than that. Like, you know, she's approached by Brian Darcy James's character, and you think that maybe she's going to end up working for him or something like that. I'm glad it didn't go in that direction, because it runs the risk of being a very generic show if it went in that direction. So the fact that he's just offed within the second episode, and now we don't really know where the show's going to go, it basically is going into uncharted territory, is a fantastic idea. And I love the bond that she's already forming with Jamie, how you can tell, you know, she's very regretful of the choices that she's made, and he generally does want to help her at this point. He is trying to help her, and I think he is genuine in his efforts, and I think that's going to be something that we do get to see as the show goes on, is the rekindling of Jamie and Lily. I just kind of wish we got a little bit more exploration of her and Sergei's relationship, because that was something that I think the first episode would have really benefited with, is like, why are these two acting the way they are? We get like 4 scenes with them, and I feel like it would have been a little bit more beneficial to center the whole episode around Sergei's death, and then open this episode with Lily finding out what happened to Sergei, because I feel like they could have spent a little bit more time on Lily and Sergei's overall relationship, because there's still a lot we don't know. We know that what she thought was a good relationship, there's clearly a lot more that he was hiding from her, and I'm excited to unpack that overall, and I think they did a really good job with setting that up for sure. But like I said, just all the reveals we got in this episode with the devs team, who I also have to say, I loved the characters of Lyndon and Stuart. Just their bickering, so good in this show. I read a review where someone said there's like almost no humor here. That entire conversation was humor. It's them going back and forth about like who's the worser generation, and it's just great. I love seeing the whole debate between, you know, the boomer generation and then the Gen X generation of like who's actually worse. I thought that was great, and I gotta say, Cailee Spaeny, oh my god, is she killing it here, because she is playing a dude. She's not playing she's not playing a woman, and Cailee Spaeny is someone that does have very androgynous features in that way. Like, if you were to get rid of all the parts that make her a woman, she is able to play this role, and I think it says a lot about her acting ability. And I've always really liked Cailee Spaeny, I have to say, going all the way back to a movie I didn't even like, Pacific Rim Uprising. I've always thought she's a really accomplished actress, but I have to say, this is probably one of her most impressive performances to date, because you never don't believe that she's playing this this teenage boy, basically. You know, you never believe that. You never don't believe that, and I'm really excited to get more into their relationship, the relationship she has, that Lyndon has with Henderson's character, because their bickering is so great. I love their banter already, and I feel like they're going to provide some really nice levity in this show for sure. So, like I said, episode 2 definitely left me feeling a lot better with where the show is going. They've already revealed a lot, but there's still a lot that we don't know. What is Dev's actual ulterior motive here? And I do believe that there's a lot more going on with Sergei's death than we think there is. I think there's something far more sinister at play. There's a lot that Forrest is clearly keeping from Lily that he doesn't want her to know about what's going on there. You know, why was Sergei working for this Russian spy? How long has this really been going on? What else was he keeping from Lily? We need to find out more about Lily's past, maybe getting Lily and Jamie back together, finding out more about Forrest's backstory. There's still a lot of things that the show can answer. They're just going about it in a much different way than I would have expected them to, and that's something I really did appreciate overall. Okay, so now that I've gotten all the, like, story stuff out of the way, which I know that was very scattered, but I had very varying opinions of both episodes, so I know that wasn't the most linear thing, but now we're going to get more into the technical stuff. So directing right off the bat, I mean, Alex Garland I entrust implicitly, and he does a really good job crafting this show. It feels like a very real, but it also has a very weird style to it. And make no mistake, this is a really weird and out there show, and he does a really good job crafting the show, giving it its own identity, you know, having some really nice moments of, you know, some espionage in there, having some really nice moments of a genuine thriller, having some drama in there. I mean, he does a really good job with blending it all, and that's something that Alex Garland has always been a great job in. But I think the thing he does the best is the way he keeps this mystery going, because it's not the kind of mystery that you're expecting. The mystery is not who killed Sergei. The mystery is not what happened to Sergei, because that's obvious. The mystery is what is the deeper conspiracy behind Devs? What is really going on there? And also, what else was Sergei what led this to happen to Sergei? That's really what the underlying sort of mystery is, and I think that's something he directed very well. But his writing as well, I think is really great, and I love the fact that he's actually writing and directing every single episode of this show, because it shows that he has a vision. He does not want anyone to come and compromise it, and I think he's doing a really great job. Just the way he's unraveling everything already, I think is really well done. The way he's very slowly peeling back the layers of some of these characters, you know, with Lily and with Forrest and even with Sergei, even with Cailee Spaeny and Steve McKinley Henderson's characters to an extent. He's doing a really good job of getting us to understand everyone, getting us to see who these people are, and I thought that his writing was really solid. And things like that. And like I said, I think that first episode, he does a really good job with kind of throwing you off and not really getting you to understand, you know, the bigger picture of this show, really kind of saving that for the second episode. So I do think it's a good move that they decided to drop the first 2 episodes. I know every FX show is doing that now because this FX on Hulu thing, but with this show, it was absolutely the right move, because to be honest, if I were to have just reviewed the first episode, I don't really know what I would have said. I feel like you needed that second episode to really be like, okay, now I know where the show is going, and I think that's something they did, that Garland did a really good job with, for sure, is what he decided to reveal, but also what he didn't decide to reveal. I just thought his writing was really well done here. You can tell he cares about these characters. He's really interested in creating this environment. The devs as a group is something that I'm just so endlessly compelled by every single scene with them, and every scene in the show. He's crafted a show that you can't look away 1 second. Every frame means something. Every shot is important in the show, and those are the kind of shows that really do work for me. Those are the kind of shows that I really do love discussing, and I really would give that to Garland. I think he's doing an excellent job with that. So yeah, all that stuff is really great, but the cinematography is something you have to talk about with the show because it has a very distinctive, futuristic sort of looking style to it, and I really dig it a lot, I gotta say. I really love what he's trying to go for with the look and the aesthetic of the show, and just some of the things like I said, the floating, you know, balloons of the little girl. What was that all about? The way he set up these, like, weird sort of, you know, yellow pillars everywhere. What's going on there? The devs' technology and things like that. Just little mysteries. But probably one of the things that stuck out to me the most is the way that he chooses to frame scenes here. The way the cinematographer goes about that, I thought was excellent. Rob Hardy's cinematography was so... He's also... It works that he's done cinematography for Garland before, so he already knows his style. But the way he chooses to shoot certain scenes, particularly Sergei being asphyxiated, what he chooses to show and what he doesn't, I thought was very effective. But especially that final scene when you have the character of Kenton taking down Anton, that whole scene was so suspenseful with the way it was filmed, not knowing how that was all going to play out. I just thought the cinematography was absolutely brilliant here. It's one of the best things about the show, and the score really stuck out to me. It's so chilling and really gets under your skin, and just the very minimal saxophone that we'll hear, like in the beginning, or like flute or whatever instrument that is, I just love. I love it so much, and I really think the score is one of the best things about the show for sure. I think that Ben Salisbury and Jeff Barrow and the Insects, they're doing a really great job making something that is really memorable in that way, something that really creates a very certain identity for this show, and I really do love the score here. And like I said, the editing in these two episodes, the first episode I didn't think was edited the best. I think that there were a couple things that it could have done more. The first 27 minutes were very differently paced from the last, like, you know, 10 or 15 for sure. And in hindsight, a lot of those things that I did have problems with aren't really an issue, but that is one of the things that did very much stick out to me overall. But the second episode I thought was paced much better. I thought that the way they ramped up everything, the way that they kept you invested, the things they showed, the things they didn't, I thought was paced really well. So again, I'm overall really excited to see where the show does go. This wasn't a premiere I was blown away by, but it's intriguing enough. There's a lot here that I think they set up really well. There's a lot of mysteries that are already being solved that I was really surprised by. I was not expecting to know as much as we do, but yet I don't feel like they're doing too much. I don't feel like they're running out of steam. I kind of felt that in the first episode, but now knowing where they're headed, I don't really feel that at all, because now we know the actual message, you know, the actual underlying, you know, mystery of the show, and now I'm much more interested to see where they're really going to go with it overall. So overall, guys, I was definitely a fan of this premiere. So now I'm going to rate both episodes individually. So for the first episode, I'm going to give that episode a B, and the second episode is going to get a B+. Alright, so overall, guys, in my review, the first two episodes of Devs, let me know what you guys thought of this show overall, left your thoughts in it. As usual, guys, I will be reviewing every single episode of the show weekly. I really hope this show does well. FX on Hulu is, I think, literally the only good thing to come of this Disney-Fox acquisition, and I hope that it takes off, because I think this is a really interesting thing that they're doing. I think this is a really good way to get people to watch FX, you know, who don't have a subscription and things like that, and it's far more user-friendly than FX now. That whole system was kind of wonky, and I'm glad that they're kind of doing away with that and moving to Hulu, and I think that this is a really good first show for them for sure. But either way, guys, in my review of Devs, let me know what you guys thought of the show overall, left your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.